Peace be with you. I am Bruce Wozniak. This is Catholic Sports Radio, located at the intersection of your faith life and sports life, and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and lots of other platforms. Thanks so much for joining me for this and hopefully many other episodes. The show website is catholicsportsradio.net, which has everything from a built-in player to hear each episode there, links to various podcast platforms where you can listen and subscribe/follow, logos to click on to follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, as well as join the Facebook group. Plus, the website has a bio about me and even an area called For Listeners, where you can submit prayer requests. I got an email from someone recently regarding a possible guest for Catholic Sports Radio. I took a look at the sender and realized that the person who wrote it did so through a website that is auto-generated by the company that hosts the audio files for all episodes. It's really nothing to look twice at, and in fact, there's even a message in all caps at the top of it that says, "This is not the official website for the podcast. You will find it at catholicsportsradio.net. I don't want to confuse you, otherwise I would tell you the address to find it at, but rest assured that if you compared that auto-generated site to the official website that I've told you was built by a company called Merchantside Marketing Group, you would more than see the difference, and you would realize how you can have a website that costs little to nothing but looks very plain, very unimpressive, or you can invest in your business, your product, your service, your image, and get something that looks first class, just like what is seen when you go to catholicsportsradio.net. Let Merchantside Marketing Group do the same for you. Use their ad on the show website to go over to their website and get in touch with them to put a great representation of who you are online. And by all means, when you contact them, do tell them that you heard about them on Catholic Sports Radio. Now on to my ministry moment for this episode. I remember during the Major League Baseball playoffs watching my Tampa Bay Rays in a game against Boston where a batted ball hit the outfield wall, bounced off the outfielder, and then over the wall. There was lots of confusion and opinions and a delay as all parties involved waited for a ruling from the umpires, and I believe they might have even checked with the league office while play was halted. But in fact, something as obscure as that is in the rule book. So it was just that simple, very black and white. It's kind of like traffic signals or the April 15th annual tax deadline. We all know the rules. It's interesting then that it's easy for us to follow those types of regulations for things of this world, but we make it so difficult to follow the simple laws of God. As evidenced by the presence of umpires, the presence of referees and rule books, yes, certainly there are certain do's and don'ts in sports. However, we should remember that when it comes to feeling challenged by the simple laws of God, rather than think of penalties and restrictions imposed upon athletes, our Heavenly Father's set of rules set us free. Moving on now with this week's episode, my guest was on the Division I George Mason women's soccer team and then served in a student assistant coaching/manager role with the team. Earlier on, as a student athlete, she had competed in 3 sports in high school: field hockey, track, and soccer. She was an all-state field hockey player and captain of her travel high school soccer team. Injuries in her athletic career played a key role in the growth of her faith life, as we will hear today. Welcome to Catholic Sports Radio, Erinn Black.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, you bet, Erinn. Thank you so much. Folks, Erinn did a tremendous job of sending lots of helpful information in the lead up to this conversation, but little does she know that I did some digging on my own and came up with some additional details, including, wow, you definitely come from a sports household. Unless there's more, tell the audience what I'm referring to as it relates to your father and 2 of your brothers in terms of sports participation.
Yes. So my father was a Division I wrestler at the University of Kentucky back when they had a program. And then one of my brothers played football in college at Lafayette in Pennsylvania, D1 level. And then my other brother, Connor, wrestled at Virginia Military Institute in Virginia as a Division I athlete as well.
Wow.
So across the board.
Yeah, for sure. Well, while we're talking about your immediate family, I'm going to assume that this was a traditional Catholic household that y'all were raised in.
Yes. We born and raised Catholic and have always been. Both my parents are Catholic, and that's how they raised us.
Well, for the audience, I mentioned in the intro that Erinn had injuries that significantly impacted her participation in athletics, not to mention playing a part in her faith life. Erinn, you tore both of your ACLs before your sophomore year of college and have had 4 knee surgeries total since then, along with 4 ankle injuries spread throughout. Let me just take a minute for that to sink in with all of us. Wow. What's perhaps even more amazing is you say that it's possible to find beauty in the suffering. Lead us into all that.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, as you just said, there's been significant suffering in my athletic career. And I just have a history of injury since high school into college. And what I found with each injury and the intensity of it, there were so many ways that I was able to enter into a deeper relationship with Jesus in that. I think on just a standard level with others, it's when you're injured, it's a way that you're put in a place where you have to receive from others. And I think that was just a hard spot for me to begin with, but you learn to receive love and you have to depend on other people. It truly plays into our neediness and the nature of our neediness. We are made to be needy. That's how the Father made us. But I think that's so often neglected as we grow older, and especially in athletic realm. But my injuries were always just a great place to learn to receive, to appreciate the little things, and to live into my neediness and dependence, because I can't do anything on my own.
Yeah, what a great point that is. I hadn't considered, you're right, when an athlete gets injured, he or she has to rely on so many people. I'm thinking of trainers that are part of the athletic staff. I'm thinking of doctors, even if you think of something like an x-ray tech, and not to mention family or friends. So you're right, it's absolutely a situation where you do have to surrender so much, and you do have to allow yourself to receive what all these people want to do for you. And I think an athlete, the temptation is to say, I got this, I can do it myself, let me walk, let me do the thing here that I shouldn't be doing.
Right, absolutely. It is totally the temptation, and to just be self-reliant too. I just remember how hard-headed I would be in trying to come back from these injuries, but you truly cannot do it on your own at all. And once I started learning that, it was just allowing other people into my suffering and allowing them to love me there. And that just allowed me to grow more than me doing anything on my own.
Okay, but I think there's a tendency for an injured athlete to feel disconnected from the team while they are rehabbing. It can be very challenging emotionally, but as someone who went through not being able to be out there on the field with her teammates, talk about how to be a team player as the injured person.
Yes, I think it's so important. This was clearly something I had to learn, but the way that we choose to view our suffering and be in it matters extremely, not just for ourselves, but for others. So I just recognize there are 2 options here in these injuries. I could either sit in self-pity and be angry of the circumstance that I was in and just make myself a burden to the team and just be resentful that I was not there on the field, or just temptation to live into hopelessness and despair.
Yeah.
Or there's the other side of that, of choosing, accepting where I was at and choosing how can I be a supportive teammate in this predicament? What ways can I actually go out of my way? Because I'm not useless here. I still offer value here. And my whole goal was to lean into that, whatever that looked like. If that was me screaming on the sideline and being the motivator through all the games, that's what I did. If that was me in the first phases of coming back from my ACL surgery, I could do extra work and help the starters on the field, do extra touches after practice or serve them balls. That's what I was doing. If that was me leading girls off the field, just in whether that was Bible study or just being there for them in their own mental state with other women that were going through the same injury as me, that's what I was doing. So I just always wanted to recognize there is still there is still beauty in this suffering, and to live into that invitation, because our suffering is always an invitation to die to ourselves for the sake of others. One of my favorite coaches, Allison Habit, she's the assistant coach for University of Alabama softball, and she openly talks about how they have won. She'll give credit for championships to those that are on the bench in the ways that they have supported their team. Like, she'll openly just give them credit. So never underestimate the role that you have. You always have a role on your team, whether you're not playing, whether you're injured, whatever the case is.
Okay, but at the same time, I think we could look at everything that you went through personally as an athlete and define that as, I'm going to use the word poverty, but you were in a weakened state physically. So because you've kind of tipped your hand a couple times towards the faith side of all this, how did your, I'll use the word poverty again, lead you to intimacy with Christ?
I think in the ways that I was suffering and the ways that I was entering into that, it was continuously being a deeper invitation into my relationship with Jesus, because at that point, that's like all I could offer. And he loves meeting us there. Like, that is what's echoed in scripture. He's going to those who are in poverty, the weak, those who are poor. And at this rate, I was extremely poor. I was suffering severely in my injuries. I never actually had a college career because of it. And that was a very hard spot for me because it was tied to a lot as well. But in that, it actually it allowed me to deepen my trust in the Father. It actually allowed me to have a relationship with Jesus. And, it's one thing when you can live into the faith when things are good, but it's a whole another thing when you're choosing that in the darkest days of your life.
That's right.
And there's an intimacy there that actually grows. I mean, if you think about any other ways that you suffer, you become closer to people in the hard times. And that was just the choice that I was making in that. And I had people accompanying me in that, which was beautiful. But there were plenty of days where I ended in the chapel with tears and just emotional, but being very consoled by Jesus and it actually being life-changing for me.
But I'm interested, though, you started to say there were some others. So everything that you're describing is terrific, but was this all self-initiated, or was there some prompting from a teammate, from a coach, from a friend, from a family member? Was there a certain event? What led you to pursue Christ in this way that you thought, okay, all is not lost. I'm hurt. However, my Father is holding me through all this. So how did you embark on seeking him the way that you've described?
So I think coming into college and just highlighting this too, like, because things were good, it was kind of like I believed in God and he was there, but I had so many other things consuming me in my life. So truly, I had to be stripped of the things that were controlling my identity, if you will. So sports was a big one, relationships was a big one, my academics, popularity, just the whole college ideal was like truly, controlling my life. So when all that was taken, there was emptiness. And in that, I had been in Bible study and had people around me, but the one that changed a lot for me was a focus missionary that I had met my junior year named Hannah. And when I met her, she was the first person that truly took the time to see me where I was at. She didn't just see Erinn Black, the soccer player, dating this person, having these accolades, looking like this. She saw me as Erinn Black, daughter of God. And that really changed things for me. There was a joy about her that I'd never seen in anyone. Wow. That I desperately wanted for myself.
Wow.
And as she continued to befriend me and truly invest in me, she just totally imitated to me the joy that I was looking for and what can happen when you just let Jesus love you and fill these voids in your heart. So everything just started shifting for me as I started growing in that friendship, and then that starting to change team life, the communities I was in, and just my whole day to day.
Okay. Wow. Of course, another part of all this is coming to the crossroads and realizing that you're just not going to be competing anymore, and then having to address not being an athlete anymore. Everyone handles that differently, some more successfully than others. I have had a front row seat to a lot of those stories on this show over the last more than 2.5 years. I'm blessed to be in this role, in this seat, and have the opportunity to bring you, the audience, these stories, these guests, week after week. It is, in fact, a ministry for me, and I'm optimistic that what I bring you through Catholic Sports Radio does impact you positively in your faith life. As many of my guests could attest, as I know my wife could attest, it's something that I'm working on sometimes at very non-traditional hours and or on the weekends, committed to giving back with my time and talent. It does come at a financial cost too, though, unfortunately, and the expenses not only add up fairly quickly, but they have to come out of my pocket since I don't get any income from doing this and don't have any sponsors yet. You have heard in the past when I have publicly thanked listeners and guests who have made a financial contribution to Catholic Sports Radio, which is a tremendous help to me as it relates to trying to manage the related expenses. On the website, catholicsportsradio.net, there is a Donate to CSR button that makes it fast and easy for you to contribute securely online in any amount you wish. There's no drop-down menu of amounts to choose from. You put in whatever you're comfortable with. Maybe that's $20, which happens to be the amount I have to pay each month to the podcast hosting company. Maybe you're able to contribute $50 to Catholic Sports Radio, $100, more than that. I don't know. Do please prayerfully consider what you can do for this ministry in terms of financial support to help me offset the various costs that I otherwise have to find a way to take on my own. Instead of doing it online, by the way, electronically through the website, alternatively, as some folks have opted to do instead, you can get in touch with me through the contact section of catholicsportsradio.net to ask for the mailing address, and I will personally write you back with details on where you can send a check. I'm grateful to everyone who listens to the show and would most appreciate your considering Catholic Sports Radio as part of your tithing as I continue working to use this ministry to bring more people closer to Christ. Erinn, let's talk about what I alluded to before all that. There is an identity crisis of sorts that people battle when the reality sets in that they're not going to be an athlete anymore.
That is so true. And I definitely went through that, and it was extremely difficult. There are very hard things of coming to the realization that the sport that you've been playing since you're 6 years old is done, and that it is not happening anymore. So there is a lot of pain and grievance through it. And I think at least the biggest struggle I've seen amongst most athletes that I've known is that there is no coping process. And I was grateful that I was able to enter into that and accept and embrace through also like entering into my relationship more with Jesus, that this title that I had was a finite title. It was not what gave me everything, because it was going to come to an end at some point. Did it come to an end in a way that I wanted it to? No, it didn't. I did not expect it to come to an end with injuries, but the beauty of that is through that identity crisis, it actually led me to my identity. There's many numbing and coping mechanisms that I was choosing in the process, and just realizing that nothing was filling that emptiness. I was still empty, and I had everything that the world told me that I should have. And nothing could fill that infinite longing in my heart until I met Christ. It's as simple as that. And as I actually like could trust that and dive into that, I knew what commitment was. I knew what giving my all into something was, but it was just being able to see that and take the risk in my faith, which again came from others accompanying me. But that's truly what helped me with the identity crisis. And it was necessary for these injuries to happen. That was a question that I think a lot of people will wrestle with, is like, why? There's a lot of whys out there, and there's a mystery into it too. There's a mystery into our suffering. But for me, when the Lord revealed that the why that I was asking him, why didn't you give me the platform? I could have done this, that, and the other for you. He made it very clear that he said, Erinn, you wouldn't have chosen me. And I wanted your heart so bad. It would have got so lost. You would not have chosen me, and I wanted you too much.
Wow.
And yeah, that for me just really revealed the heart of Jesus and how much more abundance he actually desired for me than just the soccer career in college. So it really allowed me to surrender the why of that and trust into the risk of giving Jesus Christ everything. And I would never go back. I'm very thankful for the suffering I've gone through and the degree that I did, because I wouldn't be the person I am. I wouldn't have the heart that I do. And I wouldn't know Christ in the depth that I do either.
Amen. Amen. Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. And I can't help but sit here and think, as you speak about these injuries that you went through, does she have the scars? I'm thinking of the end of October, the episode 143 with Brittany Bach. She talked on that episode. She was a professional soccer player for 7 years, and she talked about overcoming 11 surgeries, broken ribs, concussions,
Wow.
and the scars that she had, and being in church and looking down at her foot and looking down at her wrist and realizing that her scars were the same as what she looked up at on the crucifix. So folks, if you never heard that episode, go back and listen to that conversation. Very powerful testimony that she shared. Erinn, in the lead up to this conversation, you mentioned something to me about accompaniment in the faith through authentic friendship. Can you share about that for the audience?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, when I was entering into my faith more, after there's the experience of losing my soccer career and at the same time losing relationship, I dove into the faith through this focus missionary who was walking with me, and through going to conferences through Focus, which there's national conferences with thousands of people. But what changed it for me, it wasn't all the big things and just all that I could receive. It was having someone there day by day with me, choosing my good and willing my good, which is the definition of love. So that's what I think I had. At this point in my life, I had experienced many friendships across the board, but I think having an actual authentic friendship, which with that is again, just someone who is Christ-centered, is willing to be vulnerable and grow in trust, and is willing to have hard conversation for the sake of my holiness. That changed a lot for me. I needed someone I was so used to kind of being the anchor for most of the people in my life that I needed someone who's going to sprint with me towards heaven. And that is what Hannah did for me. And with that just like manifested into other relationships on my soccer team. That being imitated to me is exactly how Jesus was with his disciples. Like that's how he walked with them. It was a day-to-day adventure together, eating, sleeping, breathing together kind of thing. So I dove completely into just greater healing, consistent prayer life, sacramental life, this new community, the people I surrounded myself with. And then I was able to dive into that with my soccer team, lead them in Bible study, and accompanying my closest friends on the team.
But there's something in there that you said that I want to go back to, which was going to a conference. And I think I used to experience this most with going to a concert, Casting Crowns, Matthew West, fill in the list of whichever artist it was. And I used to call it the spiritual hangover that you would have the next day. And it's great to go to those, and they really do a lot for you. I'm talking about concerts or conferences. And let's be honest, at those conferences, those are very powerful opportunities. And sometimes you make great relationships. Sometimes you have someone that's crying on your shoulder, and they are very impactful. However, it's very short term. It's a couple days long, or it's a concert and it's a couple hours long. So it's so important what you just described, that yes, those are good resources for us, but it's those people who are going to walk with us on a consistent basis, and not just go to a concert and you never see the person again, or go to a conference and you get all charged up and then you say, well, now I'm back all by myself. What do I do next? So very good testimony that you shared there.
Right. Absolutely. That's why I love my job that I do now as a focus missionary. It's intentional investment into those around me. It's not just throwing retreats or leading Bible studies or taking them on mission trips, which are all good. It is the day-to-day, like, I'm laying my life down for you and I choose you and I want to be with you as we continue together to grow as missionary disciples and and growing in our faith and our relationship with Jesus. So that was the absolute game changer for me in college, to have someone to choose me in such a way and not write me off. I think that was another beautiful thing about Hannah and my story. I had a very radical change. My life, I was living a double life for most of college, and then everything shifted. And the thing with Hannah is, like, she totally saw me for that and chose me. I think it's easy to write it off as this lost cause. And that was completely the opposite. I always asked her, what made you want to choose me when externally I was not living out the faith? And she said, I would ask Jesus all the time, show me the way you love Erinn and let me choose her that way. And she did that.
Wow.
And it changed everything for me. So that's the same way that I approach being a missionary now, is I ask the Lord to reveal to me the way you love this woman in front of me, and let me pursue her the way you do. Let me be the face of you and the hands of you. And it's like that living reality, because you don't see that on college campuses. That's completely lost. It should be the most formative times of your life, and faith is often the first thing that goes. And the reality is, when you leave college, it's a lot less of an option to actually grow in the faith. Like, it's not as common versus actually growing that foundation there. So it's just such an important place to know who you are and what you're made for, and answer those questions and not be afraid of them, because there is an answer.
Okay, well, there's something else that we're all afraid of. We all know that whether it's sports or not, there is a big, big challenge that we all face, which is discerning the Lord's will for your life. And I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yes, I think discernment for sure can be, it is a big thing. I think for me, when I was coming into, my faith and following the Lord's will, it looked completely different than the things that I could control. So basically
not surprisingly, right?
Discernment is surrendering over your control and actually trusting the Father with your life, completely giving it to him and allowing him to do with you what he wills, because he can only will good for you. So it was once, and you're not going to know that unless you have a relationship with him. So it wasn't until I actually dove into a relationship with him that I could arrive at this place. And that's kind of what changed the trajectory for me coming out of college. My end goal was not to being a focused missionary. That was not my track at all. In college, I had an internship with the FBI for 2 years.
Wow.
And I was going to go full time with them.
Wow.
And from, the transformation that happened in my heart, and just this zealous heart for souls and what had happened to me, I just deeply longed for that for other athletes, because I know the identity crisis that you have, this performance-based kind of mentality that you live into, proving and earning love. There's just a lot of lies that were living there that I just desired to walk with other women in. So I gave up my internship with the Bureau and interviewed with Focus, and accepted the offer. And the reason of even coming to that spot was just being attentive to the peace within my heart. Because to the world, that was crazy.
Sure,
That was
sure.
like,
Of course.
what are you doing? You're about to give up the most secure job you can have to fundraise your salary, be sent somewhere that you don't know you're being sent, and walk with student athletes and hear all about their lives and the struggles that they're going through. And it was just so worth that. And the reason I could enter into that, because there was such a peace. The Lord doesn't try to play games with us or make discernment this hard, tedious thing that we have to figure out. He is there, and it's like if we just trust in where he's leading us by the peace that he's putting on our heart, we can continue taking small steps forward. So,
well, but you also have to put yourself in a position where you are listening for him,
right?
And you have to open your heart and be willing to hear that. Because, folks, on the last couple episodes, I know that I have made a passing reference to, did I mention this all the way back on episode 1? And I have not gone back to listen to see if I did, but I did recently watch the one and only video that as of today is on the Catholic Sports Radio YouTube channel, which I never talk about, but there is a link to that on catholicsportsradio.net. And in that video, I talk about my version of what Erinn just said here. She thought she was going into the FBI. And in that video, I tell the story with pictures of being on a riverboat in Brazil on a business trip on the Amazon River and hearing the call and walking away from a job in the Olympic movement that I had been at for 10 and a half years, traveling around the world to 17 different countries and having people say to me, just like you just heard Erinn say, oh my gosh, why would you give that up? It's such a secure job. And of course, people armchair quarterbacking from the outside looking in. But I heard the call and I give on that video, I give my story of the 3 different messages that I felt from God that day. And so you do have to be listening and you do have to be obedient. And that's what Erinn's talking about. And I heard it too. And I also love hearing, Erinn, stories about athletes ministering to others that they compete alongside of. Can you talk about living a life worthy of imitation on your team?
Yes. So it's a great place in team life to be able to live into something and others are others are going to imitate you because you're on a team, you're close knit. So conformity is a very real thing. And I just realized in my whole walk with faith, that was something that was laid out very clearly once I had my radical transformation, was the Lord was asking me to give him everything. And he was saying, if you invest into me the way you do your teammates and or your sport and your relationships, I will not only transform your life, I will transform the lives around you. And no human will love you like I can. Wow. So as I gave my yes, which our yes is powerful for not just us, it's for everyone. Our yeses impact everyone. I came back from my second Focus conference and started leading my team in Bible study. We had 15 girls showing up weekly with all different faith backgrounds. And it was beautiful the ways that we were opening up to each other, being vulnerable, and actually growing in community in a way that we hadn't before. And this led to an even deeper relationship with one of my best friends, Becca, who was the captain of our team. She was essentially like someone who had it all. She was what I wanted, quote unquote, to be as a player on the team that I unfortunately couldn't with my injuries. And yeah, she had all the things, and it was beautiful. I was praying for her because I desired a deeper friendship with her that was centered on Christ. And one day she came up to me after practice and said, Erinn, I see what the Lord is doing in your life and I want to come with you. I said, great, let's go. So wow. Just the beauty of living out what the Lord is doing and how other people see that. People see the Lord. I tell a lot of people, you begin to glow differently. The way Hannah approached me, she glowed differently. Other missionaries that I see that are living in the intimacy of Jesus, their faces shine, and it's it's noticeable. So I think what was happening, with Becca and I, she was starting to see this transformation of this living into worldly life that I used to live, and this transformation of giving my life to Jesus. She wanted in. And so we started walking together. We went to conference together, and our senior year, it led to us and 3 or 4 other of our teammates going to Trinidad and Tobago on a varsity Catholic mission trip, which is just a student athlete mission trip through Focus. And that was so transformative for her and myself. And at this point, I had already said yes to Focus, and it became a desire on Becca's heart as well. So when she came back from that trip, along with another Focus conference, she applied to staff, and we joined staff together. And it has been extraordinary living as a missionary with one of my best friends for the past 3 years.
Outstanding. And do share with the audience where you are these days. You've mentioned that you are a Focus missionary, but we didn't talk about your location.
Yes. So I have been a Focus missionary at the University of Connecticut in Storrs, Connecticut for the past 3 years, and I work with the student athletes up here.
Yeah. And for those of you that have been listening to the show regularly, of course, I give you a sincere thanks. But I also want to let you know that what should be coming to mind right now is Molly Bent, the guest from back on episode 135, and her having played at the University of Connecticut. And if you go back and listen to that interview, episode 135, you will hear Molly talk about Erinn, which is how we came together. And Erinn, I want to go back and just, you mentioned about seeing others glow in a different way. And I just really want to take my hat off to you. I can quote unquote see you glowing in the way that you talk throughout this conversation. And God bless you for that, because obviously others are seeing it in you, and that's a large part of why he called you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And with that, folks, we are getting ready to wrap up here, but I do, Erinn, have to first thank you ever so much for making time to be on Catholic Sports Radio. And God bless you for all that you're doing for the kingdom. I really appreciate you making time for this, and God bless you in all that you're doing.
Yes, thank you so much for letting me on. It was a pleasure sharing, and I'm extremely grateful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And listeners, we will close with an athlete's prayer this week as a nod to Erinn's days as a student athlete, and we will do so together in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, today is game day, and I place myself in your loving hands. Help me to be a good sport. I pray that I do not seek individual glory or accolades, but rather that I play for your glory and for the good of my team. I pray that all who play this game today are protected from physical harm. And my Lord, help me to accept the bad breaks as part of the game. I pray that I play to the best of my ability and to give honor to you by accepting my position and my place in the lineup. Loving God, I pray for those who watch from the stands, that they too give glory to you by accepting without prejudice the rules and decisions of the game today. May their hearts be filled with joy and gladness that you have given them the ultimate gifts they watch this day, the players. Dear God, I pray for the coaches and referees that they too experience your loving guidance in the decisions they make today. For those who work behind the scenes to make this day enjoyable, and for the founders and supporters. Finally, I pray to you, loving God, that you enjoy this game today and bestow on each of us wisdom and acceptance no matter the outcome of the final score. With you in our hearts, we are all winners. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thanks so much for listening. This is Catholic Sports Radio. Find more at catholicsportsradio.net, as well as on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It is at Cath Sports Radio on all those, CATH, at Cath Sports Radio. I'm Bruce Wozniak, and remember, it's not whether you win or lose, it's that it's Jesus that you always choose.